the new changes to the cooling off laws has probably put a little bit more power in the vendor's hands again. Traditionally, or in the past, if you had legal advice on a contract, you couldn't cool off. The changes that have been made today do allow you to cool off even if you had legal advice on the contract.
What's happened with these recent amendments that have come in on the 1st of March is that one of the reasons that you were unable to cool off previously would be if you'd had legal advice prior to signing. That limitation is now gone. So a person can get all the advice under the sun about the contract and still exercise the right to cool off. The consequence is that people may be looking at cooling off in more circumstances, and there's this concern that they could go around, look at a number of properties about which they've had advice, sign a number of contracts, and then at the end of the day make decisions about which one they're going to keep and cool off on the rest, although there is of course a penalty to pay if you do cool off. So it seems to run counter to the idea that a person gets a right to cool off because they weren't really sure what they were doing when they signed, because if they've had legal advice then clearly they understood the consequences of what they were doing.
We've been discussing ramifications of changes to the Land Sale Act, which mean now you can get legal advice and keep your 3-day cooling off period, which you couldn't before, Tim Fletcher.
That's correct, and that's really the fundamental difference to the changes to the Act which took place on the 1st of March. That has ramifications, in my view, for what's become pretty commonplace in Melbourne, and that is boardroom auctions. And in those circumstances, what used to happen is estate agents used to say to the assembled crowd that this is a publicly advertised auction and there'll be no cooling off provisions. You can't do that anymore.
I certainly welcome the changes, Des. When we think about it, real estate is often the biggest investment that people make in their lives, and so therefore they should not be penalised because they seek independent advice before they buy property. Now, previously, conveyancers could do it, and if you sought legal advice, you couldn't. I think this just brings it all into line and doesn't penalise anybody from seeking advice.
If you'd like to know more about the new Land Act regarding cooling off periods, go to the REIV website. There's all you need to know there.